Alright, what's up, everybody? We're back with another edition of Everyday Hoops. Hope you guys are having a good one. So, today's video, we got about 15-ish games left in the regular season. Some teams have 14, some teams have 16. But mostly, you have about 15 games left in the NBA's regular season. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the NBA playoff race and see just what's going to happen, what's going to go down, some scenarios that are going to play out potentially in these last 15 games. The home stretch now. Let's see what teams do. We're going to talk about that here in today's video. Thank you guys for the views on the videos and the shorts recently. I really appreciate it. If you do like the content around here, consider subscribing, like, turn notifications, stuff like that. I really appreciate it. Really upset a lot. Link to my Twitter, description down below. And yeah, don't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into it. So we'll start with the Eastern Conference. The first race we got is the number 2 and number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. It's kind of going back and forth between the Bucks and the Cavaliers. Currently, the Bucks have a one-game advantage at 43 and 24, where the Cavs are 42 and 25. The Bucks, as I'm recording this video, are actually playing right now. They're playing the Phoenix Suns without Giannis, so we'll see how that game goes. But the Bucks currently have a one-game lead. The Bucks been playing a lot better since the second half of the season, or since post-All-Star break has started. Since the All-Star break, yeah, they have a really, really good record. They are 8-3, 8-3 since returning from the All-Star break. They won the West Coast road trip. They went 1-3. They got blown out by Golden State, lost to the Lakers without LeBron. They beat the Clippers, and they got blown out by Sacramento. So not great road trip for their tougher games. But right now they're currently sitting in the number 2 spot. Giannis and Dame, the team looks a lot better. The defense has gotten a lot better. They moved up. They're now the 15th defense, so their average defense now, while still being a top 5 offense, is really good. And I also looked at I have also pulled up the remaining schedules for each team. The Bucks have a top 5 hardest schedule left. The Bucks have the 4th hardest schedule left in the league. They still have to play the Celtics twice and the Thunder twice. They play the Magic twice as well. They also have a game against Phoenix, which is today, New York, and New Orleans left. So they still have some really tough games left. I mean, they still have to play 2 of the top 3 or 4 teams in the NBA twice, Boston and OKC. So that's really, really tough, But, I mean, they're playing a lot better now. We don't know what Giannis' injury is. He's been in and out the last couple games with a hamstring injury. He's not playing today against Phoenix. So we'll see what happens with that. But, yeah, they have a tough stretch coming up. And we're really going to see a lot of things from the Bucks here. But the Cavaliers are also fighting for that 2 spot. They have not been great since coming back from the All-Star break. Of course, Donovan Mitchell has been in and out of the lineup. They've had injuries again. Evan Mobley's out again. They've really struggled to be healthy so far in the second half of the season. But they're still only 1 game behind the 2 spot. They had a tough loss last night to Houston. They got blown out in that game, which was tough after having a really good win over the Pelicans. So, yeah, it's been back and forth for them. Good thing is they have the 19th hardest schedule, so they have a kind of easier than average schedule left. They still have to play the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, and the Clippers, and the Suns. So they still have to play 4 tough Western Conference teams once. They also have to play Indiana twice as well. But then their easy games, they still play Charlotte 3 times. So that's an easy one. But yeah, the Cavs, all they really need right now is some health. Good thing is they have about a 2-game advantage above the 4 and 5 seed. So as long as they stay okay, they don't even have to be super on fire. As long as they stay kind of good and what they've been playing for the entirety of the year, they'll probably finish as a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference and have home court advantage in the first round. But yeah, that race is something to keep an eye on, the 2 and 3 spot in Milwaukee, Cleveland. And then you have the rest. You have the 4 through 8 kind of in the East. Right now, the Knicks are the number 4 spot. They're 40 and 27. They're currently on a 3-game winning streak. Jalen Brunson's back. Jalen Brunson has had back-to-back 40-point games. They're currently sitting at 4th, a game above the 5th seed Orlando Magic, with 2 games behind the 3rd seed Cavaliers. So maybe if the Knicks do get healthy, they also have OG Anunoby back, and they're 15 and 2 with OG Anunoby playing. So maybe if those guys can keep them afloat until Julius Randle come back, then maybe they can overtake the Cavaliers. It's not out of the realm of possibility. The Knicks schedule, they have the 16th hardest schedule, so they have about an average schedule. They still play Boston again. They play Denver and OKC, Milwaukee, Sacramento, and Miami all once. So they still have some tough games, but they also play the Bulls 3 times, the Nets twice, the Pistons, and the Raptors. So they have some easy games left in there as well. So there's a possibility they could overtake Cleveland for that number 3 spot. For right now, they got to focus on staying at that 4 because the Orlando Magic are right behind the Knicks at the number 5 spot. They are 39 and 28. They have been dominating over this last stretch of games. They did get blown out by the Knicks in that game. They only scored 74 points. So that was a really tough one. But since coming back from the All-Star break, they've only lost 3 games. Since coming back from the All-Star break, they're 9-3. They've been balling. They've had also one of the easiest schedules in the league, and they still have the 24th easiest schedule left. So they still play Milwaukee twice. They play the Clippers. They play New Orleans twice. They play Sacramento. Golden State was one of their harder games. But their easy games, they still play Charlotte twice more. They play Portland, Memphis, Toronto, Houston, Chicago. So they still have some easy games. They still have an easy schedule left in the league. So, there's a potential, there's a chance that the Magic could have home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs, which is crazy. But now with the Knicks playing really well, it's a little bit less likely. But even still being in this top 5 and being in above the plan, because honestly, I thought the Magic were just going to be a playing team after a hot start, and then the injuries happened. They were kind of stuck in like the 8th spot, and I was like, yeah, that's probably going to be what it is. But since the last month, they've been hot, and now all of a sudden, it looks like they might not be a playing team. They might be actually in the playoffs, so it's just crazy to think about. But right now, they're in that 5th spot, comfortably, a game behind the Knicks, and a game and a half above the Indiana Pacers, who are the 6th spot. The Pacers have kind of been falling this year. Of course, the Tyrese injuries affected a lot of that. They have kind of been reeling a little bit in terms of like they have not as hot as they were to start the year, and they're still trying to kind of get out of the play-in and be in that top 6 spot. They have a tough overtime loss to the Bulls. DeMar DeRozan dominated. They've won 3 of their last 4 though, and look at their schedule. They have the 15th hardest schedule. They have the most average schedule left in the NBA. Indiana does. So they still play OKC and the Clippers. They play Cleveland twice. They play Miami. They play the Lakers twice, and they play Golden State. And then for the easy games, they play Detroit, Toronto, Brooklyn twice, Atlanta, and Chicago. They beat Brooklyn yesterday by 20, and they still play them on a back-to-back in April. So, Indiana's trying to keep their spot up, but it's been kind of up and down for them. And then at 7, you have the Philadelphia 76ers, who are 37-30. They're only a half game behind Indiana for the 6th spot. Of course, Philly this year has really gone down since Joel Embiid's injury. We still don't know if he's going to be back or not this season. Philly has the 17th hardest schedule left. They still play the Clippers twice. They play OKC, Cleveland, Phoenix, Orlando, Sacramento. They are going through a rough stretch. They were comfortably in the top 3, top 4 the entirety of the season, and then with Joel injury, they have just plummeted, and now they look like they could be a play-in team right now, sitting at 7th. Still only a game behind Indiana, so them Indiana are kind of fighting for that 6th or 7th spot, because of course that's the difference between a play-in game and being comfortably in the playoffs. And then you also have the Miami Heat at number 8. The Heat have been really struggling as of recently. They were on a 4-game losing streak until they got a Piston game, which they won. But yeah, since coming back from the All-Star break, we thought they were going to turn it on and be hot. And they won their first 5 of their first 6, but then they won a 4-game losing streak. They only put up, they put up 108. Sorry, Detroit was the one that put up under 100. But it's been really tough for Miami. They've really been struggling. Bam Adebayo's been kind of in a slump. They still don't have Tyler Hero. Jimmy still hasn't really turned it on yet, even though we thought he was going to turn it on. They just really been struggling. Their offense is back in a slump. The good thing for the Miami Heat is that they have one of the easiest schedules left in the league. They have the 27th hardest schedule left. So they still play Cleveland twice. They still play New Orleans, New York, Dallas, Indiana. They play Philly twice, which looks like it's a hard game on the schedule, but really it's not, because they're easy games. They play Washington, Detroit. They play Portland. They play Toronto twice, Atlanta, Houston. Miami's 36-30. So right now the Eastern Conference playing 6-8. Right now is Indiana at 38-30, Philly at 37-30, Miami at 36-30. So literally a game and a half games separate each team in that. So really it's a 3-man race for one spot. 3-man race for who's not going to be in the play-in. Right now the schedule looks like Miami could be the team that's out, but again, I was believer in Miami the second half of the season. I thought Miami was going to come out and show teams who they are, and they did. But then 4-game loser. I mean, they lost to the Wizards. When you lose to the Wizards, it's just like, man, things are not going great for you. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Philly, I'm almost dang near gonna lock in to be in the play-in, because it's just tough for them to win games. When you look at them without Joel Embiid, it's just they're really bad without Joel Embiid. But we'll see what happens. And then that's really the only race. And then after that, you have 9. Chicago is 4 games behind Miami, but also 3 games above Atlanta, who's on a 3-game losing streak. But Brooklyn is also 3.5 games out of the play-in. So it's just really tough. Right now, we probably have the 10 teams in the East locked in right now. It's just really about seeding. So we have the 2-3 spot open. Then we have 4-5. And then we have 6, 7, 8 all battling in their own spots for the East. Then we go to the West, which is a lot more crazy. We still have a battle for the number 1 seed going on. Right now, currently, OKC and Denver are tied for the number 1 seed at 47 and 20 each. OKC has a tiebreaker over them. So if it comes down to a tiebreaker scenario, OKC would have it. Both teams have been hot. OKC's won back-to-back games. They have been playing really good all season, but specifically since coming back from All-Star break, they've only lost 3 games. They are 10-2 or 10-3. I'm sorry, since coming back from All-Star break. Meanwhile, Denver has been just on another level. Denver is 11-1 since coming out of the All-Star break. They've been fired. They are battling. They came out after the All-Star break and said, we're going for the number 1 seed. We're trying to get the number 1 seed and trying to get home court advantage again because we know how unstoppable we are at home. And so, yeah, OKC and Denver are battling out for that number 1 spot. Looking at the schedule remaining, OKC has the 7th hardest schedule left remaining in the league. They still have to play Boston. They still play Milwaukee twice. They play New Orleans, New York, Phoenix, Sacramento. And then for their easy games, they play San Antonio. They play Charlotte, Toronto, Utah, Houston all once. For Denver, they have the 21st easiest schedule left. So they still play Minnesota 3 times, which is crazy. They play the Clippers, Cleveland, New York, Phoenix, Dallas. And their easy games, they play the Spurs twice, the Grizzlies twice, Portland, Utah, and Atlanta. So schedule-wise, Denver has an advantage over that. But, we know how great OKC is. So that's going to be a battle for you to watch. And then you still have Minnesota in there. Minnesota's still only 1 game behind both those teams for the number 1 spot at 46 and 21. They did lose Karl-Anthony Towns, unfortunately, most likely behind for the rest of the regular season, which is really tough. But Anthony Edwards has been dominant. He had a really good game last night against Utah. They've won back-to-back games to beat the Clippers on national TV. That was a huge win for them after back-to-back tough losses against Cleveland and the Lakers. But, yeah, they're going to have to deal with this without Karl-Anthony Towns. Going to have a lot of other people step up. Anthony Edwards has to put on a bigger backpack now. Naz Reid has been playing good. Mike Conley had a really good game last night. So they have the team to do it, So they're battling out. And Minnesota's record or schedule, they have the 14th hardest schedule left. So they still play Denver. So Denver and Minnesota still play each other 3 times, which is games that, are really, really, are really important, obviously, for the number 1 spot. So those could determine a lot. Minnesota also plays Phoenix twice. They play Cleveland, Golden State, and the Lakers all once as well. So looking at schedule-wise, it looks like Denver probably could get the number 1 seed in terms of just strength of schedule-wise. But, of course, you never know what's going to happen. It's the NBA. You can lose on any given night. So that number 1 race is, of course, going to be really important for home court advantage, especially if these teams meet up in the conference finals potentially, or even the second round, the 2 and 3 spot meet up in the second round. Those are going to be really important games. And then you have the Clippers kind of there at 4. They were in the number 1 race, but they've kind of fallen out. They have not been amazing since the second half of the season. Of course, their injury bug is starting to hit them a little bit. With Russell Westbrook being out for a while. James Harden missed the last couple games. Paul George has been in and out of the lineup the last couple games. So the injury bug is kind of hitting them. And right now, they're not even really safe locked in at 4 because the New Orleans Pelicans have been on fire. They beat the Clippers in that game on Friday night where Zion took over. And the Pelicans will have the season series over the Clippers, and they're only a game and a half behind LA for the potential number 4 spot. And right now, that's big because that right now is a matchup in the first round, the Clippers and the Pelicans, which would be a very interesting matchup. But the Pelicans are in there right now. They're sitting a game and a half behind 4 and 2 games above 6 and 2.5 games above the play-in. So they're not comfortably, they're a little bit comfortably out of the play-in right now, but of course, in the Western Conference, things can change quick. Looking at strength of schedule, the Pelicans have the 9th hardest schedule left in the NBA. So the Pelicans still have to play the Celtics, the Bucks once, they play OKC once, they still play Phoenix twice, Orlando twice, Sacramento once. So they have a harder schedule left. The Clippers have the 18th easiest schedule, so they have about an average-ish, a little bit below average schedule left. The Clippers still play Denver, they play Cleveland, they play Phoenix twice, they play Orlando, Sacramento, Indiana, but they also play Portland and Utah twice, and they also still play Charlotte, Atlanta, Houston once. So right now, it looks like the Clippers have the schedule advantage. I'm not going to be surprised if the Pelicans can't take over the Clippers spot for the number 4 spot, but if they do, that'd be huge. Of course, home court advantage, obviously, but that would be big. But the Pelicans right now are comfortably at 5 a little bit, and then you have the madness of the play-in race in the Western Conference. Right now, the Phoenix Suns currently are sitting at 6 at 39 and 28. And then you have the Kings at 7 at 38 and 28, only a half game behind the Phoenix Suns. But then you also have Dallas at 8 at 38 and 29, a half game behind Sacramento. And then you have the Warriors and Lakers sitting at 9 and 10. The Warriors have the tiebreaker advantage. They're both Warriors at 35 and 31. Lakers are 36 and 21. They're both 2.5 games behind the Mavericks for their number 8 spot. So that play-in race, of course, is going to get crazy. You have Phoenix at 6 right now. They're sitting there. They're playing Milwaukee right now. Obviously, But the Phoenix Suns have the second hardest schedule left in the NBA. Phoenix has a really hard schedule left. They still have to play Denver, OKC, Minnesota twice, the Clippers twice. So they still have to play the top 4 teams in the West 6 times. And then also add in, you have to play Milwaukee and Cleveland once as well. So Phoenix has a really, really hard stretch coming up for them. So they're really going to have to lock. And they're easy games. They play the Spurs twice and the Hawks once. That's it. Those are only easy games. So they're going to have to really, really lock in if they want to avoid that play-in race. But then you have the Kings at 7. They have been kind of balling recently. You know, have some good wins, but also have some weird losses sometimes in there. But they're battling with the Suns right now, trying to make it out of that play-in race and get comfortably in that 6th spot. You know, the Kings have the 11th hardest schedule left. The Kings still play Boston. They play OKC. They play the Clippers. They play New Orleans, New York, Phoenix once. So they have kind of a harder schedule left. And then the Mavericks, they've been up and down. They won 7, then they lost 4, then they won 4, and now they lost. So they've been really up and down. Hopefully Luka Doncic is okay. The good thing about Dallas is they have one of the easiest schedules left as well. They have the 26th easiest schedule left. Dallas, they still play Denver. They still play OKC. They play Sacramento twice, Golden State twice, and Miami. But they're easy games. They play Detroit, San Antonio, Charlotte, Utah twice, Atlanta, and Houston twice. Even though Houston isn't really an easy game right now because Houston's on a 5-game win streak. They're hot right now. But Dallas has a, per se, easier schedule left. So that could do some potential. And then, again, they're only a game out of the 6th spot. So that 6, 7, 8 is not guaranteed at all. It can change by the day. Probably today because Dallas plays Denver tonight. So that's going to be a really, really tough game. And then you have the 9 and 10 spot. The Warriors and Lakers fighting for that number 9 spot advantage. There's still 2.5 games behind Dallas. So there's a potential that one of those teams maybe could sneak up and get the 8 spot. And they're 3.5 games behind the 6th spot. So there's a world potentially where one of those 2 teams can all the way jump up from 10 to 6. It's not really likely, but there's a world, you know. But right now, kind of those two teams right now are kind of battling for who's going to get home court in their 9-10 game, because that's what it looks like right now. The Warriors won that game last night against the Lakers in that bizarre ending, but the Warriors end up winning that game to get the advantage, but they still play each other again. So that's tough. Looking at those 2 teams, the Warriors have the easier schedule out of those 2 teams. The Warriors have the 25th easiest schedule. The Lakers have the 22nd easiest schedule. So the Warriors still have to play Minnesota, New Orleans, New York, Orlando, Dallas twice, and Indiana. Then their easy games, they play San Antonio, Charlotte, Portland, Memphis, Utah twice, and Houston. Then for the Lakers, they play Minnesota, Milwaukee, Cleveland, New Orleans, Philly, and Indiana twice. And their easy games, they play Washington, Memphis twice, Toronto, Brooklyn, Atlanta. So those are per se easy games for both of those teams, but those teams have been kind of up and down all season, so we don't really know. But right now, those teams are playing their best ball at the best time. And they're trying to just make up ground, which is the crazy thing as well. Because both those teams have been playing really good and playing a lot better. And now they're comfortably above 500. But it doesn't look like it changed much because everybody else has been winning too. So it's like they've made up a lot of ground. They went from being 5 games under 500 to 5 games above 500. It's just that they haven't changed spots because the Suns are still winning. The Mavs are still winning. The Kings are still winning. Pelicans are still winning. So it's like you could do so much and win. But if the other teams around you aren't losing, then it's like, you know, then they're not really going to change spots. So it's really interesting to see. And we also probably have the 10 teams in the West locked in. The Rockets have been balling. They've won 5 in a row. They're still 4.5 games behind the Lakers. So barring any crazy meltdown from Golden State, the Lakers, these are probably going to be the 10 teams in the Western Conference. It's just really about seeding, which it is. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to come down this last kind of final 15 games, this stretch for the rest of the season. You know, looking at playoff races, we're, of course, going to keep locked in on there. Because it is, I mean, it's really important. Home court advantages and matchups and all stuff like that. It's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen. So, yeah, we're going to be really locked in and see what goes down. But, yeah, it's going to be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, if you enjoyed the content around here, consider subscribing, like, turn notifications, do all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. Really helps out a lot. And, yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.